Stanford University.
So the question I had was, so this has been a class about sort of improvisation and identity, and I suppose one of the questions has to do with the nature of improvisation. Did you all feel as if you had to have rules in order to be able to improvise within that? In other words, did you have to have these boxes that you were then going to have to problem solve your way out of to get there? Is that a fair kind of description of what you all are describing about your process here?
I mean, the old age rule of improvisation is it's always yes, right? I mean, that's really, if anyone who works in that knows that there's always a yes in terms of like, you never want to shut down an idea. So you always want to kind of encourage, when you improv and you do the rules and you do those, you do those, I'm sure you guys know those rules, yes, And so I think what Tanuj would do is he would just let us fly, like at the end, especially at the end bits of, have you guys all seen, you've all seen it. So like at the end of almost every episode, he would never yell cut and we would just keep going, whatever would, we would go on for 5-10 minutes at a time. That's how the Geraldini song came up. I just started singing. I was like, okay. That came up through just us sitting there. And I'm like, how am I going to piss her off now? And like moments like that happened for all of the episodes pretty much because he just let the camera go, and Michelle found her moments and she found hers, and within them, there were so many things I think each of us have found through just letting the camera go, and all of us just encouraging us to get as crazy as possible. And because we shot each episode in order, it allowed us to grow naturally in the sense of, you think that you're like, that's as far as we're going to go, but there's more and there's more and there's more and there's more. And it was really fun to do it that way.
Tanuj, you were talking about having to improvise like camera shots and editing on the fly and that kind of thing. You were kind of forced out of your own zone in some ways as well.
No, I'm just living out of my zone. I think to do a show, you have to have no zone. There's no zone. I think we came in very scripted. Like, it's not like we didn't have any structure, but for me, it's like, I want to get to a space with this. I wanted to get to a space with this piece that the lines felt just real. Like things just felt like it was natural coming out of people's mouth, whatever the line is. And a lot of that happens based on a lot of that is off script, And I think it just as a writer, you have to just throw your ideas and ego and everything out the door and just see what the actors are giving you. And I think early on, especially, I didn't want to yell cut. I wanted them to just go and go and go. Even if it goes, when it feels awkward on set, that's great. That's like what you really are going for. You want people to feel really awkward and painful and make them work their way out of those moments. Like, go to those spaces. And I think we've actually turned that leaving the camera going thing into an art form now. Like, I think it's now in the second season, we know we know just as long as we need to roll for. They know just as many beats as they're going to try and experiment with. It's become more of a science, but even in shooting, typically I have a pretty laid out shot list and a methodology that I'm moving through the room with. And in I suppose the first season, I actually shot the first season, and I didn't have a DP, and I was sort of like, I had to be very fluid with my camera structure and work and put it on its feet, see what they were doing, and put the camera in play in a way that could cover everything I needed to cover, and even editorially, you have to kind of you have to things online are very. I have like 5 seconds. You have like 5 seconds. Like 6 seconds, you're going to turn it off. Like, you have to put the viewer in a chokehold from the very beginning, like, and drag them through your story, and that might mean a really quicker style of cutting, and you have to kind of plan for the ADD factor online, and that's a different way of even editing. I don't know if that's improvising as much, but I think it's just being conscious of what we're creating in real time, and applying your technical skills to what you're making.
Another question I had about sort of the improvisational aspects of it is that obviously improvisation sort of brings with it a lot of risk, and I guess I wanted to ask sort of what have been your biggest failures, and have you been able to turn those around in the context of Nice Ghost Crew, but if you've got a good story beyond that, totally want to hear it as well.
How about failure story?
I was actually telling Sheetal right before we came in here about how I met my husband, which was that we took an improv class at Wesleyan together that was taught by a student. And basically it was like the 3 comedy troupes at Wesleyan and me and my husband who didn't know each other. And so these comedy troupes were all warmed up and they were used to working together, and then it was me and my husband. And so they would like be on stage and being really funny and making everyone laugh, and they knew all the games, and then they would always look around and say, who hasn't gone? And my husband and I would be like in the corner, and they'd be like, you two, and we'd go up, and they would always give us a romantic relationship, and 16 years later we're still together. But
so it really worked.
It really worked. But ever since
Nobody yelled cut.
Ever since that class, I've been traumatized by improv games. Like I've taken classes at UCB. Like there's always been something about the pressure to come up with things on the fly in front of an audience and make them laugh, and they give you a word and you have to remember that word, because I'm standing there the whole time not being present because I'm like, sailboat, sailboat, sailboat. It has to come back to the sailboat, and then like it's my turn, and I'm like sailboat, and it makes no sense. So like there was something about working in this structure where we knew the script so well already, and we were all so comfortable, and there was no audience there that was going to like let us know we bombed right away. That made me realize, I actually like improv. It's not traumatizing at all. Anyway, so it turned into a love of it. I don't know if I would go back on the UCB stage now and willingly put myself up there, but I do love working on it in this format where it's scripted, but you have the freedom to know where you're going to end up going.
We should be clear. You're not talking about UC Berkeley.
No, the Upright Citizens.
Which I went to. I went to that school. I remind them of that all the time. It's become a thing. But the Upright Citizens Brigade,
yes,
which is one of the top improv spots
yes,
in the country, both in LA and New York.
Yeah.
Okay. Failures?
Oh God, there's not enough time to talk about failures.
Your number one failure.
Well, there's the first time I was fired from a job was pretty dramatic. And I was 15, and I was the token Asian girl because I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I was, woohoo, yeah, Bobby.
Virginia in the house.
And I would get cast because I was the Asian girl, and I think I did a Ford spot where I said, I'm American, and that's why I like American cars. and they actually had me put on this Susie Wong wig because they thought my hair was not straight enough.
Wow.
And I started
working. They could see you in Nice Girls Crew, right?
I know, exactly, because now I really went for it, pro. And I started making money at a fairly early age doing commercials and industrials. And so I think what happened, because I got one of those PBS series where, you watch the kids and you're like, so, doctor, how'd you make the fire go? And so I got one of those series, and I was the Spock character.
Oh, wow.
So, but for me, at that age, I was like 15. I was working as an actress. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Someone's paying me to do something that I love. And when I got my next series, I didn't bother memorizing my lines until the night before. And I showed up on set, and it was pretty obvious that I had not done my work, and I got a call like the next day saying, we're going to have to let you go. And it was hard. And but that was when I realized if you don't do your work, you're going to get the axe. So it was a hard lesson to learn, but I'm glad I learned it at a very early age. Yeah. But honestly, I feel like failure and comedy is intertwined. I think you have to fail sometimes, because sometimes the most dangerous comedy comes out of failure, and that's when it's the most exciting. And if you don't really go for truthful, painful moments, like you were suggesting, embarrassing moments, things that you may not actually reveal in the the mainstream world, but when you're playing, going for things that you think are uncomfortable can sometimes be really revealing, and it can be painful but funny and so identifiable, you know. So it takes a long time to get there, though, to really put yourself out there and not stay safe when you're working with comedy. But I feel like if you can get that real fine line between comedy and drama, where it's a little painful, a little scary, and dangerous, I feel like that's when it becomes exciting.
Great story.
I've never failed.
You never failed.
It's also not in my vocabulary. It's not an option. It's not in my vocabulary. Cheating.
Well then, period.
She needs more time than me.
Oh yes. I mean, I agree. I think there's been so many times where you feel like you don't. I know for me, I don't know where. I know. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. You know, in the sense of you're in that space of, what the heck is this? And you're feeling like you're failing. But as Michelle said, and like that's when you find the juice, really. You know, and I feel like I've had great environments to kind of do that. I've also feel like through class and work, especially class for me, you know, I've had some really great teachers and they really pushed me to do things that are out of my comfort zone. You also learn more about yourself. You also should know what your strengths and weaknesses are. There is a skill to, there's different kinds of comedy, right? There's sketch comedy, so I also know where it's easier for me and where it's not, and so that's important. And to also feel like, if I want to do more of this, then I better work on this, you know. So I just feel like I've learned. Thankfully, most of my failures were in a class with people that I admired and loved, and was mortified in front of in terms of falling on my face. But I also learned more than I could have ever, and to have that space and not be necessarily a professional job, I was very grateful, you know, in the sense of like, not that I haven't failed, you know, but in the sense of like really, really having those moments of like, I don't know why I'm an actor, you know, that kind of stuff. I remember once saying to my teacher, acting's really hard. You know? Like I can't, you know, I don't know how to, I didn't know what to do, you know, it's just you think you know and you don't, and that's when the best stuff, and he would always, and my one teacher would just like push and push and push. I mean, we'd be crying, like, stop. But the best stuff, you know, comes out of that.
I mean, also, you know, who knows what failure is? I mean, what is failure? What is? I mean, like, I've had successful projects that, I mean, you would think that you expect other things to happen. Like, you can do a great film, you love it, and everybody loves it, and still nobody cares, you know. And you can do like a piece of crap, shoot your kitten like hitting a bottle, and the kitten's failing, and you're shooting the kitten, you put on like 1 million hits, and that's considered a win. But then it says 1 million hits online about a kitten, like. That's kind of a fail in some way. I mean, I don't know what is failing. You know, what is winning and what is failing. Winning isn't always winning. Like, I know we're in a room full of winners there, but like, maybe you're not winning it. You know, just because you think you're winning, you might not really be winning. And you might also be failing, and it might be the dopest. Like, you know, it might somewhere it teaches you something that 10 years later you're like, that actually was the biggest win I had in my life, was fucking that up. You know, I don't really, you know, I don't know. Like, I've gone to a space where, you know.
Have some water.
What time is it? Are we? Where are we? I had a tough childhood.
It is true, though. You don't. Yeah. How do you define failure? Because you know, I was saying this to you on the phone. I feel like Asian Americans, the F word is failure. You know,
that's the 4-letter word.
That's like, don't fail. How do you get to your solution the fastest possible way? Who's the fastest? Who's the quickest? And who can do it the best?
And the most efficient, you were saying.
The most efficient yeah, right. And that does not allow creativity. Does not allow you to discover. And that is when your art and the stories you tell start to become very one-dimensional. You know?
The only failure is if you're not connected to yourself and your heart. Honestly, and not to be cheesy, but like, you know, if you're not connected to your heart, if you're not happy with who you are with your friends, with the real things in your life in this industry, I think that's failure. I think everything else, you try things. Even, you know, I don't know, just you try things. Like, success is.
Well, that's defining success, right? That is success.
Yeah.
People get caught up in the idea of what is success, and is it monetized? Is it this? Is it that? What is it really? And that's personal, but it comes the same lines, you know?
I see all these winners on TV. I'm like, wait. I don't care how much money you have.
See, that's a wonderful thing, because at one point I didn't know where you're going with all this stuff, but it actually ended up really nice.